Welcome to our third segment of this afternoon's program. It's Sunday, the 27th of October, 2024. It's now, what time is it? It's now 2:21 in the studio here at Observer Radio on Radcliffe Street, St. John's, Antigua. I'm your host, Barbara Arrindell. Sitting in the studio with me is Eddie Smith. I guess we can now call you my co-host since you've done your duty as guest. Eddie's shaking his head. I'm glad that we're not on camera.
How about the stepchild?
Eddie, the issue at hand, as we, independence celebrations tend to bring to mind things like our national heroes. And not just our national heroes, but the many other heroes and heroines that are out there. And there are many. So we're asking the question, after a hero or heroine is named, how do we, or how should we, or how can we celebrate him or her? Now, during the segment, maybe even at the beginning of this segment, we're going to hear the voice of Joanne Hillhouse as she shared her thoughts previously. And I'll ask our guests then to maybe start off by commenting on Joanne's thoughts. Now, the first guest I'll introduce, she's a trained journalist who has worked in and contributed articles to multiple media houses in Antigua and Barbuda. She's a novelist and screenwriter with at least one full-length book still sitting unpublished on a hard drive somewhere. She's a calypso writer, and over the years has often provided commentary on many cultural issues. Gisele Isaac, welcome to The Big Issues.
Thank you, Barbara. Good afternoon to your listeners, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists.
Great. Now, Dr. Radcliffe Robins is known to you and to many of us and our pets as the friendly vet. Before that, he was an educator. And always, he's been an activist and a person interested in how we see our history and how we use it to build a better country. Dr. Robins, good afternoon. How are you today, sir?
Good afternoon. Thank you so very much for having me. And good afternoon to Dane. Hope you're having a wonderful day.
Thank you.
All right. So, let's hear what Joanne Hillhouse had to say about this question. How do we honor our heroes and our heroines? We'll listen to her voice, and then we'll move from there.
After a hero or heroine is named, how do we celebrate him or her? I think we should find any number of ways to keep their memory alive, to transfer to the people coming behind, living or dead, or I should say living or not yet born, who an idea of who they are and why they matter, so that we have physical things, we have stories, we have songs, we have memorabilia, we harness all of our energies in terms of arts and craft to make sure that their value to our collective story is understood. For instance, I recently read and wrote about My Name is Marcus, a book by Jamaican writer Jeffrey Philp in my column, Creative Space. This book is a children's book. It's a graphic novel. Children and adults, I think, will find it quite readable. And as a graphic novel, it's very visual, very dynamic in the way it tells the story of this man whose legacy still impacts us in terms of Pan-Africanism and all of that to this day. But in the book, he's a boy. His consciousness is being shaped and formed by his experiences in childhood and young adulthood. And all of that is now being handed as a gift to a new generation decades after he walked this earth. To me, that's something we can do. We can write children's books about our national heroes. It's a proposal I made some time ago. We can create not dull, talking heads, documentaries, but docudramas. Again, something else I proposed that we could do about areas of their life and the things that help to define why they became so important to the public consciousness. So just um, it should come as no surprise to anyone that I always come back to story, but through song, through dance, through theater, through mass, story is what has fed a lot of what I know. I always jokingly say that I get a lot of my history through fiction. And it's a joke, but it's also true because if we tell the stories, we keep the memories alive. And we tell the stories in different ways: film, books, songs, all the ways that we celebrate our culture, make our art. Um, oh, one other thing that comes to mind is when Heather Durham was culture director, she started a national art collection with some of our cultural icons. We don't have a national gallery. We should. Who should be? We should have commissioned paintings of our national heroes in that gallery. So that's an example. On the point of dance, I also remember the Antigua Dance Academy when they had their festival. They did a street performance one time of 1736, that whole thing, and I always thought that's such a capsule. You know, that's an example of how we remember. We commission a staging of that. We record a staging of that. We circulate that to schools and make sure that the kids know why King Court matters, why Nellie Robinson matters, why V.C. Bird matters, why Viv Richards matters, why all our heroes matter. Keep them in the public consciousness actively. Use our artists. Um, just keep telling the stories and create public monuments to them, as we have to some, but not all. So, those are some of the ideas that I would have about how we can celebrate them, remember them.
Now, Dr. Robbins, I believe I saw in the newspaper that you were interviewed by Observer at some point. I'm not too sure if it was just an on the phone interview or if you were in studio with someone. But I believe that they were basing a question on something on the museum's Facebook page, where in discussion about Prince Class, the museum Facebook page posted the question, are we doing enough to remember our heroes and our heroines? And your response was, we're definitely not doing enough to remember our national heroes. So Gisele Isaac, do you agree with Dr. Robbins, with his response?
I didn't hear his response, Barbara.
Okay, so
if he could give it again, I'd be grateful.
All right. So, Dr. Robbins, are we doing enough?
No, actually, Dame Gisele did hear it when Barbara said are doing enough. We have celebrations in specific moments generally. For example, coming up to independence as we are now, there is talk of our national heroes. But for all intents and purposes, that is most of what happens. Occasionally, a street is named after someone, and that is the other thing that is usually done. But it is not enough. I think, I was about to say that, Miss Hill also peeping over my shoulder, looking at my notes, but it's the other way around. It shows that ideas emerge independently within our community. And one of the things that needs to be done is exactly each and everything, that Joanne has mentioned. Take, for example, the King Court, revolt. It is one of the most dramatic events that you could ever read about. The ups and downs, the stops and starts, the tragedy of its failure, and the historic implications. Rick James, just as she mentioned about the Antigua Dance Academy, Rick James also did a play on this. But I would like to see someone with cinematographic skills really bring to life the social moment in which it occurred, the skill and the insight of someone like King Court. Answer the question: how are you, a boy of 10 years of age, without any quote-unquote education, because remember, slaves, enslaved persons are not educated. How could a boy, 10 years of age, grow to the position that he held in Kirby's enterprise and organize an insurrection over a period of 8 years is the substance of intense and acute drama. And it is things like this that we really need to do. As you know, Joanne said also, children's books, that is where we need to form the consciousness in our young people. And without necessarily repeating all the points that she made, because I think that they are fully made, what is the purpose of this? It is the direction in which I would head. What is the purpose of this? And the purpose is to build and solidify a national consciousness of belonging and of who we are. And I think if we begin to appreciate this, then we help in the development, we harness the energy, the psychological energy that is required for national development. Many people think that it is just the economics. You do this, you do that, you deal with the infrastructure, you increase the GDP, that those are the pillars upon which the national development takes place. But that requires an intense knowledge of self and an intense awareness of the national consciousness for development. So I'll just pause there as in terms of the initial thoughts on this.
Gisele?
Well, my problem is not, or my challenge is not basically the culture and how we can use our culture to inculcate a sense of national pride in our heroes and all that. My challenge here is, who is this our? Because we talk about our heroes, but who is the our? We live in a country that reportedly is 40% not native Antiguan and Barbudan. Many of the people who live here might not even speak English. Some speak English only in a limited way. So not every citizen and every resident acknowledges our heroes as ours because they don't know who these people are. Apart from Sir Viv, who still has international currency, our heroes are trotted out only once a year around now for display purposes only. And then even Sir Viv has come in for disrespect by people who ought not to be disrespecting. So we have to first figure out how we are going to get half or almost half of the population to recognize the people we call heroes as heroes, to teach them about these people. They don't know who they are. And so how can they respect and honor and show deference to people about whom they've never been taught? We have people who come here from other countries that are fiercely patriotic, and they hold on to their heroes. And even when their children are born here, those are the heroes that they pass on to their offspring in the absence of we Antiguans and Barbudans failing to do so. So every Jamaican I know talks about Bob Marley and Paul Bogle and Marcus Garvey and Sam Sharp and so on. How many of our children can do this? How many of the people in the diaspora remember these people, our heroes, know what they're heroic for? What have we done other than talk about them once a year? We have Dame Nellie. She is our education, well, she's foremost known for her educational pursuit. How is it that we don't have a national prize for academic excellence or effort in her honor? Why isn't the National Public Library named after her? King Court is celebrated as a revolutionary, a freedom fighter. Look at his monument, how it is kept. Is it a place where we, the descendants of slaves, can take a visitor or an immigrant and educate them or even sit and reflect? Sir V.C. Byrd, the father of the nation. Look at the father's house. We have allowed our father's house to fall into ruin while we have an executive building mansions out of the Southern Richmond policy. So what really have we done, even as nationals, even to those who pay homage once a year? What have we done apart from what we're doing now? Look at the Sir George Walter Highway. dark like the seventh level of hell. Where's the outcry? Celeste Bird Medical Center, named after another national hero. Where's the excellence there? Look at our places, the Antigua Recreation Grounds, which is supposed to be an iconic venue for cricket. Look at the state of it. So we have two problems. If we don't honor, how about those who have come in, those who have been born since, those who have migrated here and have made their home? What can we teach them? We have to define or redefine our before we start talking about further honoring our heroes. That's my position.
Okay, appreciate that, Eddie.
If you'll permit me, Barbara.
Sure.
I would just like to say that Dame Gisele raises a very, very important point that has occupied my mind also for quite some time. And here is where Joanne comes in. And you even at the start of this segment referenced a book, I think you said it was called Marcus, where the writer gave us a fictionalized account, maybe docufiction, account of the young Marcus Garvey, written from the perspective, written in a way that a child would understand. It is our responsibility as Antiguans and Barbudans to Antigonize those who come here to live and benefit from our table. And I agree with Dame, we are not doing enough of that, and it is an important point. If we had more of these activities as outlined and developed by Joanne at the beginning, an integral part of our school system, they are sitting in our classes, they are learning this, and they are understanding why we are who we are and why we do what we do. And the examples that she has given are fantastic. Even going back to Nellie Robinson, Dame, Georgiana Nellie Robinson. Even going back to her example, if we understood the social circumstances in which a young woman, 18 years old, is setting up a school in Antigua and Barbuda at a time where she's saying admission is not limited to race because black people could not be educated at that time in the schools that were for the children of the white planters. It is not limited to religion. We don't care what religion you come from. It is not limited by social class. This was a time before adult suffrage, when you had to have a certain amount of money in order to vote in Antigua. You begin to understand the power of, for example, the motion picture screen that these stories tell. They are very, very, very powerful stories. And if we understood that social struggle that was going on at that time to bring black Antiguans and Barbudans into the modern era, into education, we would appreciate more the value of these heroes. And if we were able to teach and show these things, then those who come into our community would be absorbed into it. But there is no mechanism for absorbing this new influx of persons into our consciousness, national and otherwise. And just let me add one other thing to it very, very quickly. As an example, the United States is given the name of being a country of immigrants. Why haven't these immigrants transformed the nature of the United States, but have become merged into it? And that is because of the power of the institutions that they have. And we need to understand that it is the strength of institutions which help to build national cohesion and national consciousness.
Absolutely. And Doc, when you become an American citizen, you are tested. Regardless of your age, you have to undergo a test. What do you know of American history? What do you know of the heroes? What do you know about the Declaration of Independence? What do you know about the Bill of Rights? In Antigua and Barbuda, all you have to do is come and stay for X number of years. Never do anything national. Never involve yourself in anything national. You might not even know the words to the national anthem. You don't stand when it is played. But once you have met the required residency criterion, then you're eligible to become a citizen. So no kind of transformation, no Antiguanization or Barbudanization has taken place. All it becomes in many instances is an economic opportunity validated. So we're not making the effort. We don't have a national curriculum. We pride ourselves on our children being able to take these exams set by the Caribbean Examinations Council. And we boast of how well they do. And their knowledge of things regional. What about their knowledge of things national? And what is there to prevent us as an independent country from creating a national curriculum that puts Antigua and Barbuda at the forefront? Nothing. You go to Barbados. I have the benefit this year of having gone to both Barbados, to Jamaica, to St. Kitts. 3 Caribbean countries that are fiercely nationalistic. Fiercely. And I have often wondered, what is it about them that we don't have, or that we have lost, what we used to have, that we have lost, that it is okay for us to be in the middle, mediocre, compromised, or whosoever will may come, is all right. Why is it that we're not so fiercely protective of our culture? Why do we not elevate our heroes? Why do we not, like the children of Barbados, learn that Antigua and Barbuda is the best country in the world? They inculcate that in their citizens. No matter where you find a Jamaican in this world, and they're everywhere in this world, they will tell you about their country. They will tell you about their cuisine. They will tell you about their language and their music. Why do we as Antiguans and Barbudans always have to dress back in this kind of accommodation so that our culture, our heroes, our institutions, our traditions, our values and mores are watered down? Why? And then once a year, we're supposed to put on these colors. We're supposed to fly our flag, sing our patriotic songs, and all is well. By November 2nd, we're going back to being the wishy-washy people that we were. Where's the spirit of King Court? Where's the spirit of even a short church? Who sang, and we all sing it, nobody go run me from where we come from. But what has where we come from come to? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves at a time like this.
Eddie,
Lady and gentlemen, has the time arrived, or is it long past, for us to be using media, whether it be television, radio, print, social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, to be promoting these things on a regular basis and not just at Independence Time? And I'm speaking not just here of national heroes, but there are many people who have not been elevated to the status of national hero, on whose shoulders this country has been built.
Gisele, you want to take that one?
I do believe that a lot of the people on whose shoulders the country has been built have been recognized. I see a lot of people every November 1st being recognized with national honors. Some of them we know, some of them we don't know, and those we don't know, I think we need to do a better job of bringing the information to the public so that people are not sitting in the stands and asking, who he, right? But I do think that we have made a conscious effort to recognize those persons, not only at the national level, but at the community level. I have been to several events, including hosted by our party, where the community branch, the local branch, the constituency branch, I should say, have selected persons who have contributed to the upkeep, the maintenance of the community, taught children, nursed families, midwives, and so on, and they have made it their business to give these people prominence and to recognize the work that these people have done. Because not everybody is going to get an honor on November 1st. I know schools also do it with their alumni. So, yes, we recognize that there are heroes and heroines walking among us. And I think having a national radio station and a national TV station, that more should and more could be done to bring these persons into national prominence, and having a national archive, and this being the technology age, you can have these people recount their histories. and not wait until they're 100 and half the faculty's gone to say about them what they could have told us themselves. So we can cultivate an oral tradition where these people are interviewed and we hear their stories, we benefit from their wisdom, and these things can be incorporated into the national curriculum that I'm talking about. I remember a few years ago when I used to be prominent and children would be calling me and saying, I have a project for Black History Month. There's so many people that you could be interviewing, so many stories that could be told. So maybe if we dedicate, for instance, the month of February, since we saw copycat and we've taken that from the Americans, use that month to propel our national heroes, our local heroes, our individual heroes, our community heroes, to propel them to the fore. This is something that I'm recommending we could do, and the Ministry of Education could very easily make this compulsory.
Dr. Robins, go ahead.
Yes, in relation to the point that Eddie raised, of course, it is totally valid. But I think what we need is we need to institutionalize what we do. If we do not do it, it will become the individual effort of aware individuals, conscious persons. Apart from the efforts of conscious persons within our community, the institution of education itself needs to make sure that this happens. For example, in Antigua and Barbuda, very little history is taught. Caribbean history, African history, Black history. But beyond that, no history of Antigua and Barbuda is taught. So persons graduate from high school and hear the name King Court and hear George Walter or hear Nellie Robinson. How many young people who do not attend the TOR Memorial School know of Nellie Robinson apart from national hero, first woman national hero? How many understand why she is? Why can't our schools, given the fact that she's the one who broke the barrier to black education in Antigua, why shouldn't they at the first school day of every term, why isn't something said or done about her? All these activities are part of the institutionalization of our national heroes and the building of our national consciousness. And one of the other things that we need to do is to memorialize. We need to make memories live. But how do we do this? An example that I often give, that from time to time, not often, is naming of street names and communities. So Sydney Walling Highway, the George Walter Highway. But after the place has been named, there is nothing to help you remember the person and why. And it doesn't have to be anything big. A small ceremony, a press statement, an essay competition, somewhere which keeps the memory alive in the generations that come. I often give the example again of this street on which the Green Bay Moravian Church is built. I have a mental block at the name.
John Andrew Buckley.
Yes, thank you.
John Andrew Buckley.
And Reverend Buckley was the first black minister within the Moravian service. How many persons in that community, not to mention the whole of Antigua, know of that? And we're on the road every day. And the reason why? There is no memorialization. Every year on his birthday, his death day, the year that he was made a reverend, something should happen. Some big thing should happen. Because his attainment at the time was a big thing. But there is no memorialization. And it is for that reason that I say that in order to change the consciousness that Dame Gisele speaks about, in order to bring the them into our, we need to institutionalize this process that we are currently discussing, and we need to memorialize those that are significantly important. And I think if we're able to do that, using the yardstick that Joanne has outlined right from the very beginning, then we would find that there'd be no our and they and them, that we would all have this passion that Dame Gisele has mentioned.
Would it help, Dr. Robbins, if there were signs that actually gave information about these people along the road? Because, I had the experience, I believe it was last year. So each year on another radio station, on Crusader Progressive FM, at this time of year, one of the hosts invites me to speak about one of our heroes or heroines. And I remember the year when we spoke about John Andrew Buckley, Reverend John Andrew Buckley. The gentleman sitting next to me said, "Oh, that's where that's where the name come from for that road." So he had walked the road through his entire life, possibly. And we're talking about somebody my age, and this was, I believe, the first time he was hearing that. Right? I've had the same experience with so many other things. So Sydney Walling Highway. The gentleman, it's not been that long since we lost Sir Sydney, but yet even cricketers who you would think that somewhere in there would be some knowledge. So even though we have limited time now, only 8 minutes left for this segment of the show, what can we do? Would it help if we had little signs along the roadside telling us just a little something, not enough to create an accident?
But Barbara,
sure,
we have signs, we put up monuments, do we maintain them?
Well, yes,
Look
maintenance has to...
biggest monument of all, down in the middle of the market square.
Right.
Right? And at one point, it was a place to go and drink your rum and get drunk and lie down. What reverence do we pay to these places? I spoke to the residents of the first Prime Minister at Tomlinson's. That has fallen into ruin, into dereliction. And it's only remembered December 9th? Or November 1st? I know every year on December 9th, the United Progressive Party has a ceremony. And we go to all the monuments. We go to the grave of Nellie Robinson. Then we go over to the Kingcourt Monument. Then we go up to the so-called Heroes Park, to the graves of Sir V.C. and Sir George. And we end up at the stadium for Sir Vivi. And every year we do a recital of their achievements, of their challenges, of their struggles, of what their accomplishments mean to Antigua and Barbuda and its people. So if you didn't hear it last year, you're going to hear it this year. And we lay our wreaths and we say a prayer. And we do this every year. We started on December 9th because that was our National Heroes Day. And we made that the Heroes Day because it was Sir V.C. Birds. He's first among equals. We made his day, the Heroes. We have continued that tradition because we know it is important for us to hand down to the next generation, to hand over to those who come to become Antiguans and Barbudans some litany of our history. So if we put up these signs and whatever, the first question we have to ask is, will we maintain them? How many of us drive past the Bethesda Tambourine we don't even see it anymore? It's just a tree on the side of the road by a ruined, solar farm. We have Betty's Hope. We are a tourist country. When I go to somebody's country, I like to see how they live. I don't want to be in a hotel. I want to see how the people live. What makes the people the people? And so I try to go to their monuments. I try to go to things and hear the things and look at the things that are important to them. Why is Betty's Hope in the condition it is in? Why is the tambourine tree not a bigger attraction? Why is the Father of the Nation's residence in dereliction? Why? I went on a tour one time from the Jennifer Maynard did a tour of the Methodist churches in Antigua, of the significant places. And I was amazed. I didn't know this. There are people who come here who would want to know about that kind of history. I went to Australia one time. They carried me to a museum, the Don Bradford Museum. I know nothing about cricket. I couldn't even understand the accent. But the pride in the people, showing off, is Bradford or Bradman? Bradman, right? Yeah. Showing off their preeminent cricketer. Where are the tours to the Sir Vivi Richards Stadium, the guided tours? Where is the media room where people can sit down and watch clips, video clips of his exploits? These things are not beyond us. Are we serious?
So this is all about the will to get something done, and as Dr. Robbins said, to institutionalize this, to make this something that is part of who we are. And we've had quite a few comments coming in. Many of them are saying the same things that we're saying. So I apologize to those who are sending in clips. But yes, most people are on the same wavelength in terms of how we identified what makes us an Antiguan. So if we start there,
I have one last thing to add here, Barbara.
Sure.
The next big thing in Antigua is going to be the One Nation concert. Is it a concert that makes us one nation? Is it a concert? And if it is such an important part of making us one nation, where is the Antiguanization in that part of it? What leads up to it? Other than entertainment? Are we not short of entertainment in Antigua and Barbuda? So what is the significance to make all of us who live here into one nation, Antigua and Barbuda? What's the plan to achieve that? Has there ever been one?
And Dr. Robins, I had hoped that we would have been able to spend some time speaking about Sir Sidney, but we've run out of time. So I'm hoping that at some point, you will perhaps record some of this information.
No, I don't know enough about Sir Sidney, so
okay.
I may be able to assist in pointing you in directions. But
right.
but the point is made that we are not all sufficiently aware. I know we're close on time, but I really want to take the opportunity to point out the importance of this memorialization, to show you how we are losing our way and losing our identity. At the beginning of Popeshead Street, at the junction of Newgate Street and Popeshead Street, where Moore's supermarket used to be, I think the radio station is there now, Gisele?
No,
at
not
that
any longer.
junction?
It's moved.
Not
Yeah,
any
well, we know
longer.
the
Okay.
stone. We know the big stone.
Yes, right.
Mhm.
That big stone is a monument.
Yes, it is.
That big stone is a monument to the 1918 uprising, where towards the end of the First World War, prices were high and black people were suffering, and they rioted. They had nothing with which to show their displeasure except rocks and stones. And they fought the Welsh Fusiliers. Remember, you have to understand that the garrison was where the police headquarters is. And in one of his articles, Tim Hector writes that it took nearly a week to remove the stones from Newgate Street that were pelted by the people of Villa Point, the surrounding areas, who had come into St. John's to protest. And as a result of that, that rock was placed there in memoriam.
That's right.
And on it was a plaque that no longer exists. And many of us no longer understand why it is there. And when Public Works ready to expand the road and put in a gutter, what is going to happen? They're going to pluck it out and throw it away, destroying our heritage and the memory that rock represents. And I have a personal interest in it, and anyway, that's another story. But it makes the point.
That's part two.
Yes, that is part two. It makes the point of our loss by the lack of memorialization.
And, I'll just throw in my 10-second part of that history. My grandparents told me that their parents basically were on either side of that rock throwing. So my grandmother's father, because he worked on an estate, he was part of the militia, part-time militia. So he was sent to quell them. But my grandfather's parents, who lived in Point, they would have been basically throwing stones at the other side. So, but as we said, that is part two. Hopefully we can do this, because this is how we hopefully wake up the consciousness of someone, even if it's just 2-3 people out there listening. Somebody at some point has to hear. It's why all of us here do what we do. We hope that somebody sees what we write, somebody hears what we say, and that something will be remembered, so that when we are not here anymore, someone knows, no, hang on, that name, don't change the name of the road.
Exactly.
You know what, a funny story quickly. Buckley, yes. when I asked somebody, when I was doing a little research, and I said to them, what do you know about Buckley Street there? The person said to me, probably some white man, time to change the name of that road.
Oh, goodness.
So just like the stone might get thrown away, some of the names might get thrown away with the assumption that it doesn't belong to us.
It's not important.
Okay, 30 seconds to a minute. Dr. Robins, just a quick wrap up. 30 seconds to a minute.
Just to thank you for this opportunity, and hope that it sparks an interest in what it is that we're talking about, not only within our community at large, but those persons who are responsible for our administration, our forward movement, our education, and the building of our consciousness, to take the ideas that we have explored here this afternoon seriously and do something about it.
Gisele Isaac?
I would just say to Antiguans and Barbudans to remember who you are, remember who you came from, and be an example so that people who come here to become Antiguans and Barbudans will see who we are supposed to be. The kings and queens and the princes and the princesses of this dear land of ours. Let them emulate us. Let us give them something to aspire to, rather than always conforming and forgetting who we are. Thank you.
And thank you both. It's been a pleasure chatting with you both. And I look forward to having you on the program again. I'm always happy to talk history, but history not just because it's the past, but because it can and should influence our future.